Adventurers, what's up? Give it a sec for the delay to catch up. How's everybody doing? It's Tuesday afternoon, which means it is time for the adventure prep stream. Please let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. I just did that thing where I barely spoken at all today. And this is the first time I spoke, and it's coming up. Going up phlegmy. You know it's a bad situation when it's 2 p.m. and you haven't spoken all day. It's this thing where my wife leaves for work so early in the morning that I don't see her before she goes, and then I'm kind of by myself for most of the day until she comes home, so I have no one to talk to. Except for you, lovely chat. What's going on, everybody? Yeah, it's been oh, excuse me. We did one last week. Yeah, so it hasn't been that long. Last week we did oh boy, what did we do last week for adventure prep? Why do I not remember? What's up, Clayton? Thanks for coming. Last week's adventure prep. What did we do? Yeah, my lovely, delicious phlegm. I don't remember, but we were here last week. We didn't have monster prep last week, or monster workshop last week, but we did have adventure prep. I really cannot recall. Hey, what's up, Shadowner? Got a preemptive flu shot. Yeah, that's probably wise. I gotta do that too. I gotta do this too. I honestly gotta get my booster as well at one of these days, but I don't know when that will be. Yeah, everybody, what's going on? So let me see. Oh yes, we are doing Battle Bards today. So this might not be the most exciting stream for those of you at home. I'm very glad that you've come. Plus one shadow. I'm very happy that you have come, but this is kind of a weird one. So I run a game on Saturday, one Saturday a month. For a live stream for a YouTuber called The Charismatic Voice, and I'm the sort of DM for hire for that campaign, and it's a great camp, lots of fun, but we play just infrequently enough that the story has kind of taken a long time to develop. It's also a unique case because I was originally consulting on the campaign for a while, for probably about, maybe half of its run life. Ravenloft, thank you, Shadowner. Yes, it was City of Ravenloft last week. Thank you for the reminder. I was like, God, I could not remember. Good memory. But I was consulting on the game for about half of its life cycle. We played about 12 episodes, which I guess means that it's been a year. Crazy. If we only play once a month. But I was consulting for about the first half of the campaign, and then at the halfway point, I took over and I'm now running it. So it's interesting because I didn't really establish too many of the narrative conventions of the story. Like, it wasn't a campaign that I designed from the ground up. I consulted on it, but the client obviously kind of had first say and then ran those first 6 sessions sort of without much involvement from me. So I kind of inherited this game, which has been really interesting to try to incorporate lore that I'm not always 100% aware of, right? Sometimes the players will tell me things like, oh, isn't this person blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, you tell me, right? Like, I wasn't there for that stuff. But I've kind of gotten myself in a bit of a plot pretzel, or a plot knot, and I basically just need to talk my way out of it. So we're going to go through it real quick and kind of where I'm at. It might not be the most exciting because the campaign, as I said, is pretty like, I'm trying to think, convoluted is wrong, but complicated, right? Like, it's got a lot of ins and outs, this case. And I need to make sure that I am honoring all those things while also achieving my primary objective. This session, we have a player leaving the campaign kind of unexpectedly. The player's life kind of got too busy for them to continue, and so they're trying to cut off the things that are eating up too much of their energy, and so the campaign was one of them. Great player, lovely guy. His name is Mark. You can check him out. I think he's Cardivox on YouTube. He's a heavy metal singer, or death metal singer, I believe. Yeah, it was the Butler. Nuker Wolf, welcome. Thanks for coming. The Butler did it. So it's kind of convoluted, and I need to figure out a good way to sunset the character. That way it feels satisfying for the audience, but doesn't derail us too much. And it can be cleanly done in one session. The party is not in an excellent place right now to do that, unfortunately, but I think we can get there. So let me do like really broad strokes on the campaign just to catch everybody up kind of on what's going on, and then we can kind of break down the individual plot threads. I did a little bit of a rough outline of how I think the session could go, but it's very much missing that sort of we got another plot line here, Lady Celeste. But it's very much missing that the cool conflict or whatever of this session. So let's talk about broad strokes first, and then I'll get into the nuts and bolts of it. It's a pretty standard kind of high fantasy campaign. It's set in the homebrew world of the original client, who is one of the players who plays Varantok, and it is but it's set like 1,000 years before anything he's run. So it's about these two kingdoms. We have a human kingdom and an elven kingdom, and they are at war. Both of the leadership of both of the kingdoms are corrupt for different reasons. The human kingdom is corrupt because the monarch is controlled by a magical artifact, kind of like the ring, but it's a little bit more. It's like this evil dagger that has been kind of slowly warping the monarch's perception. It has been this heirloom through the generations for this human kingdom. Meanwhile, the Elven kingdom that they're at war with is much older, and it's this like ancient institution. It's like the superpower on this continent, and its power structure is corrupted because its monarch is a lich. This is an Elven queen who is posing as her daughter, having imprisoned her daughter. That's another plot thread we have as well. Taina Kydros. How do you spell it? I forget. I think it's that. I think it's just Taina Kydros. Yeah. And so we have these two kingdoms there at war with each other. The kind of big twist is that the dagger that is controlling the human king is actually the Lich's phylactery. The idea was that during a peacetime many centuries or many generations ago, when the Elvish queen became a Lich, she wanted to get the phylactery as far away from her as possible, so that way, anyone trying to come after her wouldn't be able to destroy it. They wouldn't think to look there. So she gifted this dagger to the king of the Elven, or the king of the human kingdom, and it became an heirloom through his line of sort of like Elven, human and Elven peace. Right. The difficulty is that the dagger wasn't originally sentient. It slowly became sentient the longer it was separated from the Lich. And so now it is scheming to try to stay out of her hands. Meanwhile, the Lich has kind of grown tired of life and wishes to die, but cannot die until the phylactery is destroyed. And so the war is almost as much about the Lich trying to reclaim the dagger as it is about, territory or whatever. So that's kind of the overall conceit of the campaign. Our characters are... they call themselves the Battle Bards, even though they're kind of not so much bardic. The original hook was that the king was engaged in some kind of a false flag operation. He was like, and this was the previous DM's kind of initial adventure. He sent the characters who are bards to go and write an epic about a hero slaying a monster. When the characters got there, they discovered that it was all kind of a sham, that the king had unleashed the monster on the town, so that way his kind of state-sponsored hero could defeat it and increase morale for the war effort. And so that was kind of a plot line. There was also a plot line in that town about this ancient elven prison that contains a bunch of sort of like primordials that are all sealed away. The characters acquired a codex, which is the key to opening the different cells of the prison, although they don't really know that. The king, through the dagger through the king, also imprisoned a being. Yeah, that is a different take on the phylactery. That's true. That's kind of the thing with the phylactery. I have a tendency to kind of play fast and loose with the Lich rules. Normally, you have to keep them close, right? It's much more like a Horcrux, I think, is the better way to look at it, chat owner. But yeah, that's kind of how we're doing it. There's a whole other plot where the dagger through the king imprisoned in one of the cells a being who is basically like a celestial, right? We haven't really established much about this creature. But they're a celestial, and they were sort of the person, almost like Hephaestus, like the first being to forge magical weapons, and therefore the only person who could conceivably just destroy the dagger was imprisoned, in one of these cells. And so the party has been trying to open the codex because they recently learned that this is the situation. They met the Elven Queen, and she hosted them, and she seemed like an ally, and then they, over the course of their mission, boy, this is complicated, discovered that she was a lich, and then decided that they were going to try to get their hands on the phylactery, because then they could either use that as a bargaining chip, or they could destroy it to destroy the lich. In order to do that, however, they had to, boy, this is so complex. They had to, they were looking for the answer to the codex, because the lich also wants the answer to the codex, because that opens the door that contains the weaponsmith, right, that can destroy the dagger. So they were briefly allied with the queen. They went on a mission to go retrieve the answer to the codex. It turns out the person who knew the answer to the codex also knows the secret of the lich's identity. Is a figure known as the Raven. And the Raven was a former spy master who was killed by the queen, by the lich, and is now, their soul is like imbued in this big parcel of papers. And so the characters can like write questions to the Raven, and the Raven can answer it. It's not an actual Raven, it's just a title. And so they have the Raven with them, and the Raven has been leading them kind of one step at a time through this espionage thriller for the past couple of episodes. They found out the secret about the queen. There was a whole weird subplot with a doppelganger assassin that is not relevant anymore. But long story short, last episode, they, in order to secure the Raven's loyalty, the Raven is this very paranoid figure. In order to secure their loyalty, they had to break somebody out of Elven prison. So they broke out a prisoner named Taina Kydros from prison, who kind of fought them and refused to go and wanted to stay in the prison. She'd clearly been brainwashed. And it turns out that she is the actual daughter of the queen, of the lich, and just been kind of brainwashed and held here in this prison because the queen couldn't bring herself to kill her only child. And so when we last left off, in the process of doing that, they also freed another prisoner from the Elven prison, a human paladin and a kind of famous adventurer, one of the heroes that the king of the human kingdom was trying to kind of prop up as a sort of like wartime Captain America figure, a human paladin that on the spot I came up with named Lady Celeste Reborn. This is kind of her like parody version of her. She's a very kind of brash Brock Sampson-esque, sort of like, we're gonna go over here and do this kind of a thing, is Lady Celeste. And she is now accompanying them on the way out the door. So they are fleeing from the Elven Palace, having busted out Taina Kydros and kind of dragging her unconscious with them. And they are trying to get to a quick escape. They had previously, in a nearby dungeon, discovered, and this is a crazy summary, they had previously discovered a number of teleportation circles that the Raven knows the answers to, but the Raven, being the Raven, had refused to give those answers until the party could prove their loyalty. And so having freed Taina Kydros, Raven now presumably trusts them enough to give them those answers, and they can hopefully use them to flee the Elven Kingdom, one of the teleportation circles to flee the Elven Kingdom. So that was their plan. They are running to that dungeon, which is located inside of a volcano that the Elven City is built next to, and they are trying to escape that way. So, all of that out of the way, there are a few other small plot hooks that we'll talk about as they come up, but I think I covered them. The Codex we have, the Raven we have, Queen Gwael is the Elven Queen, the Lich. Vrontok's message we'll talk about, Alfonso's parents we'll talk about, Lady Celeste Reborn, and Taina Kydros. So we covered all of the main things. Like I say, it's a complex, politically sophisticated campaign with a lot of ins and outs and a lot of different plot threads all kind of mashed together. So this is what makes it difficult to prep, because you have to kind of walk this thin line between all these different threads. So we have 4 player characters. We have Vox, the female tiefling bard, kind of the face of the party. Not a lot of backstory. I have tried to poke this player, Elizabeth, a few times for Vox's backstory, and I haven't actually nailed them down on it yet, so we don't really know much about them. They're very bubbly, very effusive, very naive in a lot of ways. We have Unissa, who is a female elf rogue. She is kind of the I did solve the riddle of how a raven is like a writing desk. Yes, very good, Clayton. Very good. In this case, yes, the raven is like a messy sheaf of papers. But that's what's kind of, it's honestly one of my favorite characters of the game so far, is because they can only be channeled through the text, so they can't see or perceive anything. They only know what is said to them, right? And the party has discovered a way to use it as like a walkie-talkie. If they each have a different sheet of the Raven's papers, then if they write on it, the Raven can convey information in between the four of them. So that's been kind of fun too. The idea of an NPC who takes the form of like a book or again, in this case, a loose sheaf of papers. Unissa is an elven rogue, and she is a member of the organization that the Raven founded. She's kind of like a spy, and she's very much the opposite of Vox in that she's very practical and down to earth. She was working for an organization called the Sisters of the Raven, but the Sisters of the Raven are now under the control of the Queen, and so she's kind of a dissident from them. We have, I'm going to jump over Alfonso. We have Vrontok, who is a male Goliath barbarian. He technically has like a level or two of Bard, but he basically functions like a barbarian. He is an envoy from a like merchant prince far to the south who sent a secret message to the Elven Queen. And the idea is that he doesn't know what's in it. And the Elven Queen, basically he delivered this, that's how he met up with the parties, that they were going to go into the Elven Kingdom, and they met up with him, and they were all going together. He had a pledge, basically a badge that got him access into the kingdom, which is very isolationist, as I love to do with my Wood Elven kingdoms. And he has a scroll case that has a secret message that his employer, this merchant prince from a city far to the south, was sending to the Elven Queen, presumably about some kind of a trade contract, and he delivered that to the Queen. The Queen, needing adventurers, declined to open the scroll case until after he had done what she wanted him to do, basically as leverage. Like, I won't be able to send you back with the reply until I read it, and so you're kind of bound to me until that time. And that was sort of the justification for why Vrontok stayed with the party. At this point, though, they have pretty much made clear enemies of the Queen, so that plot line might not be super relevant, though I do have an idea as to what the message says. Great. And then lastly, we have Alfonso. Alfonso is a human bard that they picked up in the Human Kingdom. He is the son of a disgraced noble line that, for reasons I still haven't completely understood, the king, like, on screen executed his father. They like hanged him. And so Alfonso is now kind of like on the run. His family, I think, got in trouble for working with goblins, having some kind of a trade deal with goblins. So he's kind of like a temporarily inconvenienced millionaire kind of a character. He thinks of himself as being still very rich and high society, which is, not true. And he's kind of running around with the party trying to follow Vox, who is this famous bard, and learn from her about how to become a good minstrel. But he has this dangling plot line about his family line that we haven't really addressed yet, and I think that might be... He's also the character who's departing. That's Mark's character, Alfonso. And so I think that's probably where we're going to go plotline-wise with him. So that's kind of where we're at. I know that's so much. It only took about 15 minutes to summarize. Okay. I was kind of worried it would take longer. There is more tied up with the codex and the prison and stuff like that, but I don't think we're going to get into that in this session necessarily. But let me walk you through my outline. Oh, the other thing, too, about this game is that it is live streamed, and because it is used in conjunction with the Charismatic Voices Patreon, they have these patron polls. So high enough... Shadowrunner says, so the Elf Lich can't sign the trade deal until they reacquire the dagger, free the Celestial Smith to destroy it, and die the final death herself. Oh, wait, when does it get a reply? Yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily think it's that. I think it's that, like, the Queen figured if she could just get the codex, if she could get the code from the Raven, then she could open it, right? It wasn't necessarily all the way to the end, but I do like the idea. I also love Shadowrunner has an excellent understanding of what's going on after my long ramble, but I love how insane of a sentence that is. So the Elf Lich can't sign the trade deal until they reacquire the dagger, free the Celestial Smith to destroy it, and die the final death herself. Just as a sentence shows you how complicated this campaign has become, right? I think if I was starting it from the beginning, I would have maybe tried to simplify it a little bit, but this is just kind of like the two cooks situation we're in. Like it's a perfectly fun game. There's nothing like wrong with it. It's just like this is why prepping it is so difficult, because there's so many moving pieces. It isn't just a straight linear like, hey, I'll put them in a dungeon. It's like, well, okay, we have to balance all 5 of these different story threads. So what was I saying? Oh yes, so because it's on Twitch and there are patrons involved, there's a tier in the Charismatic Voices Patreon about polls. So I have to basically each session come up with 3 to 5 polls that I send to those patrons on Discord, and they vote for it, and that kind of determines the direction of the story. And there've been a lot of changes that are actually really important based on those. They're kind of fun to write, but they can fracture out the prep into all these different directions, because you have to kind of be prepared for whatever. So Lady Celeste, for example, was a poll option. One of the questions when they were breaking into the prison was, what unexpected windfall helps them? And one of the options was there's a powerful prisoner who's contained there. And I had kind of in the back of my head thought it's some adventurer, maybe one of the famous adventurers from the Human Kingdom the elves are holding prisoner, that kind of thing. So we've also got some polls we need to figure out in conjunction with the plot outline. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out what's going to happen in this next session. How do we get the characters onto kind of the next plot? This is sort of them escaping the elven plotline they've been on for about 5 or 6 sessions now, and moving on to the next story thread, presumably something to do with this Celestial Smith. So here's what we got. We have Battle Bards for Saturday. We have the party is fleeing from the Queen, and they're racing up the side of this volcano that they're headed up. That's where the dungeon is that has the teleportation circles to get them out of the Elven Kingdom. And so they figured that was the fastest way out, rather than trying to trek back through the forest, which they don't know very well. So one of my polls was, and I think this one I feel pretty okay about, what defensive measure does the Queen invoke to stop the characters from escaping? I've described that there are like statues, like kind of like way markers on the staircase that lead up to there's a lake at the top of the volcano, and then at the bottom of the lake is the complex, is the dungeon. Again, not something I designed, but we had to kind of roll with the punches. So one of the ideas is that these statues on the way markers animate to try to stop them and have a little bit of a combat. One of them is that it explodes the volcano, which I think is the coolest one because it's more of a skill challenge. And then one of them is that like the greenery kind of like entangles the character and tries to hold them there while the soldiers, the Queen's like royal guard, come up from behind. So my big thought for Alfonso is that we reveal that Lady Celeste reveals that she was sent here by Alfonso's mother to retrieve him, that with his father recently killed, that makes him the heir of the family and it's time for him to inherit. That's kind of the rough concept that I have, that the reason Lady Celeste was in the Elven Kingdom at all was because she was sent to retrieve him, having been hired by his family. There's a few plot tangles with that, where the Lady Celeste is ostensibly one of the adventurers who works for the king, and it was the king who executed the Alfonso's father. Again, not super clear on why. And I've tried to talk to the DM about it, and I just haven't really gotten a satisfactory answer. But I think the idea is that he is like still disgraced for some reason, because of this financial scandal. So the plot problem there is that, like, if the Queen works for... Yes, Shadowrunner says, so several big clocks on events to track for that challenge, definitely. I think exploding the volcano is kind of the Chekhov's gun one, though. It's like, we've been on this dormant volcano forever. It feels like we have to explode it. It's a little weird because that would just presumably destroy the Elven city as well, but the city could have some kind of a defense against the volcano exploding, right? Great. It has some kind of a force field, Wakanda style or whatever, which is kind of what I'm imagining. Anyway, so with the idea there is that with his father dead, someone needs to inherit. I'm toying with the notion of saying that Alfonso's mother is like the reason that he was hanged wasn't actually, the financial crimes, but because they were working with a resistance group that were working against the king, right? And that his mother is now the leader of that, and kind of a General Leia sort of an idea. So maybe let's put that down. Does Alfonso's family represent a covert resistance to the king's rule. Imagine a Magna Carta situation, right? It's like the aristocracy, rather than it being like a peasant uprising, it's like an aristocratic uprising, that they are tired of the war and they want an end to it, and so they're kind of trying to depose the king. The aristocrats, the kingdom's called Idanar. Idanar are organizing beneath Alfonso's mother, and Lady Celeste was sent to retrieve him. Okay, cool. So that kind of works. Again, as an adventurer, Lady Celeste is presumably I mean, you could also do the opposite, right? That, like, was Lady Celeste sent to retrieve them? Sent to retrieve them for the king? I like this idea better because I think that implies that like there are so many adversarial forces arranged against the party in this campaign, so it feels like giving them some allies really wouldn't go amiss, and it also gives Alfonso a nice clean exit if he kind of goes off with her to do that. But it's a lot to have Lady Celeste like dump on the party, so maybe that's the direction that we head, is we go there and then they drop him off with his mother. I kind of think that's interesting. Yeah. So let's keep going on my outline, though, and see if we can find some more polls. So at the summit, the Raven reveals the passwords and locations of each teleportation circle. So there are 3 teleportation circles inside the dungeon. 2 of them would lead to... We've already used one of them. It led to a location in the city. Another one leads to a location in the palace. But the third one, the Raven's one, I think it would make sense to lead to somewhere outside of the city, probably still in the forest. But because the Raven was kind of at odds with the Queen, it makes sense that he would have his teleportation circle in his kind of wing of the dungeon, whisk him off somewhere safe, a safe house somewhere in the forest. So I think that's fine. I think we can do that. Do a disused safe house near the border of Avon Thindar is the name of the Elven Kingdom. So the characters then teleport through the portal, and then they have to cross through the forest and make for the contested border with Idanar. So I had another poll here. So there is a contested border, sort of like the edge of the forest, that the elves are kind of trying to. It's very first season of XP, right? The elves are trying to push the forest outwards, and the humans are kind of trying to cut it back, and so they have this kind of contested zone. And so what obstacle awaits the characters on the other side? So there's either a battle between the elves and the humans, there's like a patrol from either of the 2 kingdoms, and we have previously established there's a magical force field that protects... an owlbear den is good too. Yeah, like a random encounter. I kind of like a random encounter. A random encounter owlbear den is better than the... Because like we have described that there's like some kind of a magical barrier that prevents you from crossing through the border unless you have permission, but that doesn't really make sense if you're coming from inside, right? Like it makes sense to prevent people going into the kingdom, but it doesn't make sense to prevent people going out of the Elven Kingdom. So I think a random encounter like an owlbear den or something is probably stronger. So yeah, then the last 2 things I have is we have once outside Avon Thindar, Lady Celeste demands to take Alfonso with her towards her family's estates. They, in the meantime, need to head towards Cornith, which is the town where the Elven jail is, to unlock the Codex. And once beyond the borders of Avon Thindar, the Codex, or the Raven, not the Codex, the Raven will tell them the passwords they need to unlock the primary chamber. So the Raven's been withholding this password the entire time, and so I think it makes sense, like, once they get... I mean, I could honestly even push it to once they get there physically, the Raven will tell them. Okay. So what I think we need to insert here is a plot line on this one, that, like, they need to travel to Alfonso's family's lands. Like, where, like, let's talk about this, this secret society a little bit, right? So this, like, noble resistance. Noble resistance. So it's like a cadre A cadre of Idenar's aristocrats have allied to oppose the king's endless warmongering. There's a suspicion about... I'm trying to figure out like how they would do it. Like it feels very like what are their operations, right? Like they're presumably hiring like mercenaries and stuff. Right? And so Lady Celeste, being a member of the trio, maybe she switched sides? That feels a little weird. So the trio is the adventuring party that the king used in some of his like false flag operations kind of before the campaign. So it's a little bit odd that he would that she would just randomly now be working for this resistance group, but it's not impossible. Like we've never met this character. We don't know much about them. We know they're kind of like bullheaded and rude, but that's about it. A cadre of Idenar's aristocrats have allied to oppose the king's endless warmongering. That's the concept. So the motive is, well, I mean, that could be a simple profit thing, right? Like while the soldiers are away fighting, the peasant conscripts, right? Like it's not his standing army. It's got to be the peasant conscripts are away fighting. They can't be working the field. They can't be working the field. Shadowrunner says that's more Napoleonic. Do you mean in the sense of hiring mercenaries? They can't be working the fields and are thus slowly impoverishing the nobles. They want peace with the Elven kingdom because it fosters better trade. Problem. They don't have the muscle to act openly against the king. The king controls all the nation's military aspects, and thus, because like it's like a Bannerman thing, right? That like the nobles have to send their people off to go fight in the war, and so then they don't, that not only like makes them poorer, but then that also gives them no ability to like rebel or to threaten the king while they're at war, right? Because all of their all their peasant levies are off fighting. Controls all aspects of the nation's military. All aspects of the nation's military. Which also means their own peasant levies. Because if it's feudalism, right, then it's the king at the top, and then these are the vassals. These are the nobles who then like work beneath them. The serfs work the land. So if the serfs all get conscripted to go fight, now the nobles have nobody. So I like the idea of them turning to adventurers to get things done, because those are individual mercenaries they can hire. Like they maybe have okay like finances, right? Although they're probably dwindling. But they're trying to oppose the king in whatever way they can. They would need some kind of a cool name, and they would need some like plan. Like what is their like MO? How do they operate? Having there be mercenaries, I think, is fine. There is also this weird plot where like the dagger has created a cult to itself, working through the king's vizier. So they could maybe their like misunderstanding is that there's a cult. There's a cult of worship surrounding the king, organized by his advisors. They are steering the king towards endless war. And they even have reason to believe that the, let's go solution here, solution. The nobles hire mercenaries, adventurers specifically, to solve their problems, to gather intelligence, and to perform operations under the king's nose. Even have reason to believe that the recent monster attacks have been fabricated to drum up support for the war effort. So there's another character, boy, this is what I mean, where the characters met an adventurer that the king wanted to kind of like lampoon into his service, but he wouldn't go for it. It was a brief interaction, but they met him, and he kind of fled, and he's been on the lam ever since. So I could see them, we've just been calling him the hero, but I could see the party meeting up with him as well. I like the idea of the trio, the kind of like the Avengers, although I think we compared them to not the are they the Seven or whatever in The Boys, right, where they're kind of like state-sponsored superheroes. Famous state-sponsored adventurers. They were purchased out from under the king by the nobles, and now they work for the resistance. Pure mercenaries, though they don't have any logical dog in the fight. Okay, so we need like a cool name for them. We got to figure out like what they're trying to do. Like, what is their goal here? Is it to expose the cult? Is it to, yeah, they're like goal to expose the cult around the king. Like what they don't know, yeah. What they don't know is that the dagger is actually the center of the cult. This is what I mean. It's just so complex, right? But I think in terms of like finding an exit for Alfonso, to have them like escape the Elven Kingdom for like the first half of the session, you know, and then the second half of the session is like going to his family's estates and seeing the like cool secret, like, and it feels kind of Kingsman or something like that, right? That there's like this refined noble resistance. Like they go to his old ruined manor house that they burned down, and there's a secret thing, and they go down beneath it, and in the wine cellars or whatever, there's a meeting of this cadre of Idenari nobles. Yeah, I kind of think that's cool. They don't know is that the dagger is actually the center of the cult, and that the party has a means to potentially destroy the dagger. Okay. To expose the cult around the king. And like, I mean, yeah, how did the Magna Carta work? Like they got the king to sign this thing, right? That was like really onerous. Boy, man, if my high school history teacher knew that I was like, what was the Magna Carta about? Ooh, Castlevania. Oh, sure. You're thinking of the library, right? The Belmonts. And also, hey, what's up, David? Thanks for coming. Magna Carta. A royal charter of rights agreed to by King John of England in Windsor in 1215. Make peace between the unpopular king and a group of rebel barons. It promised the protection of church rights, protection for the barons for illegal imprisonment, access to swift justice, and limitations. Yeah, they're people, not a library. Yeah, exactly. So it's Magna Carta-esque, but it's a little different because this is more of like an underground movement. It's not an open rebellion, right? It's not a civil war. Yeah, and I think it's like to force him from the throne and like install a steward. Yeah, it was like a sign or die. Yeah, install. Thank you, David, for helping me with my English history. Install a steward on the throne. Ooh. Alfonso? Maybe that's why. If his mother is the one kind of in charge, like maybe the point is to bring him back, that like that he might make a good steward. Like a new royal line, right? Yeah, that's kind of cool. I actually have to run to the bathroom super quick. So I am going to put up the be right back thing, and I'll be back in like 5 minutes. Is that cool? I think this is all really cool, though. I think we're in the right direction. It gives him a nice out, and it gives us some cool new allies, and yes, more political complexity. But again, I think allies for them at this point are going to be very valuable because I think the party feels a little beset on all sides by different enemies, and so to give them some people they can kind of rely on, even kind of like unambiguous. So like maybe the nobles have their own goals, but like I like the notion of kind of acknowledging like, hey, this king has been a tyrant for years, and the people aren't just downtrodden, they're trying to do something about it. I don't, it's also interesting too that it's like that they're nobles, right? That like I normally am like the last person to betray rich people sympathetically, but I think that makes it's more politically complex that way. Okay, 5 minutes, everybody. I will be right back with the second half of our stream today. Thanks so much for all of your patience in listening to me talk about this nonsense. All right, be right back. Hey, everybody. Thanks for your patience on that. If I was smarter, you know what I would have done is I would have asked you guys to brainstorm an idea for the name of the resistance while I was gone, right? Because it's got to have some kind of a cool name. And I was thinking about it, and I can't come up with anything yet. So I want something that feels kind of cool. Like it feels very like War of the Roses or Magna Carta to me. So something that has that kind of a vibe. Like now I actually want to look up like what did those rebel barons call themselves? Like did they have a name for that movement? Like what was it? I know the English have had a lot of civil wars, but I'm curious now. I want to use like the Rose or something like that because that feels very English, right? The First Baron War. A group of rebellious major landowners, commonly referred to as barons. They really didn't have like a name? Huh. That surprises me. Like, feels like you would give all of like that side of the war a name. You can't just call them like a group of rebellious major landowners. That's not very sexy. But something like the Roses, or like, you know, maybe it's something to do with their like primary like exports, like calling them like the flowers and vines or something like that. If they do a lot of wine, you know, I kind of like something like the blanks and the blanks is cool, right? That it's like two different groups, maybe like two feuding like noble dynasties that have teamed up to try to combat the king. The flowers and vines I kind of think is cool. There's a lot of animal imagery in the Elven Kingdom, so doing plants is kind of cool. You could also do like stones or something like that, right? But I like flowers and vines. Let's tentatively call them that. If somebody has a better hit, I'm obviously way willing to go with that. The thorns. Hey, what's up, Army Kid? Yeah, the flowers and vines. Let's do names there. The thorns. There's something I like about it not seeming that like threatening. You know, that like thorns is definitely what, if you're gonna do something with roses, calling them the thorns I think is like the immediate go-to. But there's something to me about the kudzu and granite. Kudzu. There's something immediate to me about there's something interesting to me about it not being so obvious, right? That like the idea of a threat to the king with kind of a flowery name, and that they would think of it as being like this is what will help rally people to us, right? It won't be, you know, the butchers or whatever. But let's potential names. And again, just as a reminder, I'm picky about names. So the flowers and vines, the thorns. You could combine, you like the thorns and flowers, the flowers and thorns, the thorns and vines. I like da-da-da-da. I like about, ooh, the weeds and thistles is pretty good too. The weeds and thistles. It's a little like it's a little bit it almost feels like that should be the name of like the weeds. Feels like it could be the name of like a peasant uprising. Ooh, I like the dandelions actually. The dandelions? You know, where it's like it doesn't seem threatening, but like, yeah, I kind of like the dandelions. I don't know why they're called that. Like the idea maybe of them being like one of the houses uses lion heraldry or something like that, right? Kind of Lannister style. And so like maybe there's something about like a famous quote or whatever. I do like weeds and thistles, but I think weeds and thistles works really well for like a peasant uprising. But if they're but I guess dandelions are also kind of like shitty flowers. But like one of the noble houses, possibly Alfonso's. Yeah, dandelions. Yeah, that's actually really good. Used a lion in their heraldry. The king mocked them, calling them dandelions. and they, reclaimed this, calling themselves the Dandelions. Yeah, I like that. That feels very George R. R. Martin to me, right? Like, that's totally some Game of Thrones shit. But, like, some book Game of Thrones shit. Like, that would never make the show, because they'd be like, Dandelions, that's not about tits and blood, right? It's like, no, it's cool history is why it's in the books. Yeah, good job, Two Army Kid. That's great. I love David's point, too. They grow anywhere, and it is a sunshiny flower. Yeah, I think it's the Dandelions. Cool. I love that. Okay, awesome. So then structurally, right, we say that they, Lady Celeste demands to take Alfonso with her towards his family's estates. They, in the meantime, the party can choose to... Ooh, they plant Dandelions as code? Yeah, I love that. They plant Dandelions as code, or... it's like you there's something, because you have to have that moment when they like they go into the basement of the place. I think they go to like his old estates, right? His family's estates that have been like burned down or sacked or whatever, right? Reclaimed by the king. Yeah, that's great, Two Army Kid. Love that. It says dandelions are hardy flowers that are next to impossible to kill and that spread like wildfire, and they're very nutritious even. Ooh, you can wear this is so good. Look at you guys. David says that you can wear a dandelion behind your ear as recognition. Yeah, I love that. They plant dandelions as code or signals to their followers. Yeah, see, I think they're really gonna get a kick out of this, because this is gonna give them like, oh, look at these cool people who are just unambiguously on our side, right? They plant dandelions as codes or signals to their followers. They can sometimes wear them behind the ears as a sign, as recognition. I like how you put that, David. Recognition. Cool. I love that. Wow, beautiful, guys. I should say y'all. Great. And then what do we have? I was writing this. Okay. They, in the meantime, the party can choose to either accompany Alfonso or to head to Cornith. Actually, you know what? Oh, you're messed up and you're next. Yeah, that's cool. Let's see. Let's do this. The estates are en route. The estates are en route to Cornith. And thus they can stop there on their way to the prison. A brief travel montage as they make their way across the country, across the countryside. A small skill challenge, perhaps a chance at a battle or two, but probably we want to try to hurry it along. And like when they arrive at Alfonso's estates, they discover the place in ruins, but Lady Celeste doesn't seem to mind. She takes them into the cellars. Oh yeah, there's some indication of dandelions. There's some indication of dandelions around. Whether that's in the yard or whether that's in the cellar, I'm not sure yet. Into the cellars, pulls the secret lever and reveals the hidden meeting chamber. Inside, the characters can meet. My instinct, of course, is always to do three noble leaders of the Dandelion Resistance. Let's talk about those three. So there's definitely Alfonso's mother, who I don't think we know much about. I sent a message to the player just before the stream started, asking if he had any information about his family beyond his father who died. So I'm going to see if he said anything yet, but probably he hasn't because it's only been like 20 minutes. Yeah, no. Or it's only been like an hour, so that's okay. So his mother, who I mean, I don't think the player is going to care too much if I basically make up the character, right? So there's Alfonso's mother, and then there's like noble number 1 and noble number 2. And then obviously, oh, we wanted the hero to be there as well. Yeah. The hero. So, the mother, okay. I like the idea that she is someone who you would underestimate, right? There's also kind of a Catelyn Stark thing going on here too, where the idea was this is actually a really great moment that came up in a session not that long ago, where the characters were forced to divulge their greatest secret to an NPC for whatever reason. They were like magically compelled to. And the player on the spot, Alfonso's player on the spot, came up with this like awesome little backstory detail that like when he was younger, his father like a disease hit his family's lands and it killed his father's only son. And so his father went into the village and basically stole or like commandeered, kidnapped a young peasant boy and then raised him as his son, so that way he would have a son, right? And that's Alfonso. So Alfonso technically is not the child, like the birth child of the dead noble, right, of his father, that he's some random villager. So I like the idea of maybe things have always been kind of cold with his mother, if his mother never saw him as her child. His mother never saw Alfonso as her child or after the sickness. His mother never saw Alfonso as her child. He remembers her as cold and pitiless towards him. She is the kind of person you would overlook, right? That like the king finds out that his father is involved with these kind of like rebellious nobles, and he executes one of them as a warning to the others, right? Maybe they're making a bunch of noise, right? Like, and they're a lot more like open about it, right? Originally, it's not like they are covert yet. They're kind of loudly decrying him and challenging him openly, and so then he kills one of them. He executes them for treason or whatever as a sign to the other nobles, and then they all kind of go into the woodwork. And then his mother kind of starts the dandelions as a like, no, let's do this, right? We can really. I mean, maybe there was some rumblings about it before, but she is kind of the organizing force, right, of this rebellion. And I like the idea that she's the sort of person that the king, the dagger really, would overlook, wouldn't think, oh, we have to deal with her too. You know, it's like a loose thread. Quiet and soft-spoken, but nonetheless deadly and determined. I like that. Okay. There's some other noble who I think we should make... We should make kind of a... like brash and swaggering, right? Brash and swaggering. I'm seeing a mustache. Brash and swaggering and mustachioed. Noble one is the cheery heart of the rebellion. He's kind of like the Admiral Akbar almost, right? Kind of the bigger, more colorful character. Is the cheery heart of the rebellion. He has great affection for the adventurers and wants to meet them and shake their hands. He's got kind of like a British admiral you know, kind of a whoa, sort of almost like a hare in Redwall, right? Like, think Basil Stag Hare from Redwall. Yeah. You know, just to have like one kind of colorful, goofy character. And then the hero. So this is a character that the previous DM introduced. The idea here was that there was like a peasant farmer who legitimately slew an actual monster, right? And it's kind of like a folk hero. And then the king like saw this and saw the attention he was getting and tried to kind of conscript him into his like core of heroes. So he's sort of like a William Wallace, like from Braveheart, not from actual history, who was nothing like he's depicted in Braveheart. But you know, like a folk hero who then, when he realized it was a sham, Basil was the best. Yeah, I recently had the characters in my Witchlight game fight some of the Harengon bandits, and we definitely did a like "what-ho, chaps" kind of a thing with them, because of course, like, they're Harengons, they're rabbit people. They have to be Redwall hares, or Mossflower hares, or whatever the term would be in that case, because they're not technically from Redwall. They're from Salamandastron, or Salamandastron if you were me as a kid. So the idea is that he is this kind of like jaded, you know, you can't trust anybody, peasant hero. Definitely like the guy in the back corner with the pipe. Too cool for school. He remembers Alfonso and greets the characters from all the way back in the beginning. I don't have much to do with him, but I kind of want to just like acknowledge that this guy exists because he was set up as though he was going to be a thing. Great, so those are the characters. I think that's fine. They talk about the resistance against the king. They're planning strategic raids on food, on supply chain. They've conscripted some bandits to help them, and the trio are currently, and one member of the trio, the rogue presumably, is out there running bandit operations. Cool. I like the idea of like a subplot. One of the nobles, presumably noble one, wants to speak to Vrontok about his merchant prince patron. They need money. They need soldiers. They would be happy to negotiate a new regime with his leader. Could they possibly fund an expedition back south to speak with him? Great. And then presumably the party can tell them about the dagger and everything if they want. The party can tell them about the dagger, and the dandelions can give them their support, give them shelter and a safe house where they can rest and recover once they've freed the Celestial Smith. Yeah, okay. I think that works. Alfonso, however, can't stay. However, cannot accompany them. He must reconvene with his... He must meet the other nobles, and has much learning to do about his responsibilities as the new steward of the Dandelion Resistance. Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's all pretty good, yo. Like, that feels substantial to me. They'll escape initially. They go back through the dungeon. They go through the teleportation circle. They end up at a nearby safe house in the forest. There's some kind of... We need 2 more polls. So maybe one of the polls is, you know, who is the other noble? Yeah, I like that. I like a poll about that. And then maybe something about the travel, like what kind of an obstacle do they run into on the road? Poll. What obstacle do the characters encounter on the road? So if you guys wouldn't mind helping me think of that one, maybe a couple of other options for this. I really like this, though. Maybe it's like... what mission does the poll? What mission does the do the dandelions want the party to undertake next? So one could be about like make contact with Vron Talks. Patron in the south. One of them could be assassinate or capture the king's vizier to interrogate him. And one of them could be like make allies with the elves, with the elven kingdom of Aventhendar. So actually, what mission are the Dandelions working on? Are the Dandelions planning? Right. So then they can vote on which one of those they like. Obviously, this one isn't going to work, but like there could be some interesting conflict there of them saying like, oh, we've already established contact with them and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I kind of think that works. Okay, yeah, guys. Oh, Taina Kydros. So the party has Taina Kydros with them, and she is a What defensive measures does the queen invoke to stop them? What if instead of animated statues or vines or whatever, what if it's like one of the options is that like she possesses Taina's body with a spell? So they have this woman with them. They have this basically the princess, the daughter of the queen, who ostensibly is the rightful queen right now because the actual queen, Queen Gwael, died when she became a lich, but then she just like is posing as her daughter, right, using a glamour. So the idea is that, but she's been brainwashed. That was one of the things the people voted for in the chat, is that she's been brainwashed to be loyal to the queen. So she's going to be resisting them the entire time. She's presumably tied up. So there could potentially be a poll as well about like, what does, you know, how does Taina try to escape? Like, you know, something like that could also be a poll as well. But they kind of have this prisoner with them. But that could be something they offer the Dandelions as well. It's like, hey, we have the heir apparent to the Elven throne, right? That she just doesn't know that she's the heir apparent to the Elven throne, which is interesting because then it gives the Dandelions essentially the power to both overthrow the human kingdom and the Elven kingdom. Does it give too much power to these human nobles? You know, that's kind of interesting. I actually kind of think that that's good, everybody. Like, there's not a lot else that needs to be brainstormed anyway. Like, it's just kind of the plug and play work of interpreting all of that, you know? Yeah, I kind of think that's it. I feel pretty strongly about that. It's amazing that I thought this was going to be a much longer episode because I thought we would have a lot more to even just like to recap. But I even just having you guys here, that way I can talk to you about it, and like bounce the ideas. Like it's so much easier than just kind of sitting there staring at a blank screen, you know, not sure what to write. Like having people to bounce ideas off of is so important for my like brainstorming process and my idea generation. I mean, ask my wife, right? So honestly, even just the knowledge that there's somebody there made a huge difference. I think we are going to call it there, because I think my brain is now just trying to process everything. But this is huge. So if you want to see the episode, what's cool about this campaign is you can actually watch it. We'll be going live on Saturday. I believe it starts at 11 a.m. PST on the Charismatic Voices Twitch channel. I will try to post a link to that on Saturday as we get closer, and you can come watch me run this game. It should be very exciting. Yeah, but otherwise, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I know this was like a weirdly short one for our adventure prep. But I think that I really just kind of needed to break the concept of it. I can do a lot of the nitty gritty stuff on my own. But yeah, I appreciate everybody coming. This is the Tuesday Adventure Up stream. This is a full week for streams. So we should have a game on Thursday, or a stream on Thursday. We'll be doing Monster Workshop. We will finally be making the gelatinous cube, which is exciting. And then we have our Saturday Sea of Thieves stream, which we ran last week. I might shift the time on that. I think I started it at like 4 p.m. PST last week and didn't have a lot of people watching. So I might go a little later, go to 5 p.m. And hopefully catch some more people later in the evening. And then Sunday, we should have our world building stream again. I realize that the world building stream is actually going to have to be bi-weekly now because I have another game that goes late every other Sunday. My Theros game. So yeah, that's gonna have to shift a little bit, but this upcoming Sunday we should still have a world building stream, and that one should be the map stream. I'll have to get it together and get it figured out, but I'm excited to show you guys my my brand new map of Coom. It's pretty elaborate. Yeah, but I think that's everything. If you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can definitely give the video a like down below. If you can do that, that helps the algorithm. Give me a subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. You can find me on Twitter. I am at ProDM Timothy. You can also find me on we have a Discord. We have a Patreon. All that stuff should be linked below. Go check it out. And you can also find me on my website. I am a professional dungeon master. I keep plugging this and then I remember that I'm actually booked right now. But if you'd like to hire me to run a game for you, go ahead and send me a request on my website and I will add you to the waiting list. I've got a few people on that list already, which is a good feeling to know that you are that much in demand. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, everybody. I appreciate it. I want to give a special shout out to everybody who was here. Thanks to Clayton for showing up at the beginning. Thanks for Shadowner and for following the crazy convoluted plot line. Thanks to David for coming in and helping me with the Magna Carta and all the name generation. Thanks to Army Kid. You came up with Dandelions. That was awesome. And thanks to Nuker Wolf for having the idea about the dandelions being code. Right? I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I appreciate everybody being here. I will see you on Thursday for our Monster Workshop stream. But until then, thanks for watching, and as always, happy adventuring.